right, as always, that was good friend of the show, Colin Gow, with his song podcast, fully and officially licensed through us promising him all of our royalties, of which there are none.
Which there have been none for 3 years now.
This is Steve Shoney. I am the city manager of the city of Upper Arlington. I am here with my sidekick.
I'm Darren Schulman. I'm the city attorney, and I do own the Sidekick label, proudly.
Yeah, although you're getting close to booking your first guest.
I have a guest who has said he would appear on the show 3 years in.
45-ish episodes in, Darren is going to get his first guest. I, however, have brought a guest today who I have some history with. A gentleman who currently is the president and CEO? CEO of... actually, now you guys just changed your name.
We did. Very excited.
So go ahead, Greg Davies, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, Greg Davies. I'm the CEO of now the Downtown Columbus, Inc., formerly Columbus Downtown Development Corporation, which is always a mouthful, and CDDC was always very confusing, so we simplified it, and I think it'll work really well.
So Greg and I worked together for a number of years while we were both with City of Columbus. We were colleagues for a while. He was my boss for a while, and he is a longtime UA resident. So we're going to get into it with Greg here in a second. But Greg, who is not a listener of the podcast, which
he has no idea what's coming.
I find deeply disappointing. So we start every episode with something known as Start, Bench, Cut.
Say that one more time.
Start, bench,
Gotcha. Cut. Got it.
Which we stole from some other podcasts. So we can't even claim licensing.
No, it was one of some basketball podcasts that I listened to. They were going through and doing that. So I'm going to give you 3 things that I know you enjoy, and I did confirm with someone we both used to work for that these might be things that you enjoy in life.
Okay.
And you have to have one that you can do it whenever you want. Right, that's your starter. You're keeping it on the bench to sub in, and then the third one you just can't do anymore.
It's gone.
Okay.
Philadelphia Eagles, the Grateful Dead, golf.
Boy, that's tough.
And
that's
you're
the
the first guest.
That's the whole point.
You're the first guest that we've gone cross-platform.
Usually
it's like 3 musicians or 3 sports.
Usually we would give you like 3 dead songs or 3 quarterbacks or something.
That would be
but
better.
For you, I figured...
That would definitely be better.
He knows you too well.
I know you, and I know you would have... This is, I think, other than your lovely wife and your kids and your family, I think these might be the 3 things that...
I would agree.
Yeah, and you might love them more than somebody.
Wow, that's tough. Only because I do it now, and I'm probably going to do it the rest of my life. Hopefully, I would keep golf. Just
are you going to start it, or are you going to put it on the bench? That's the one thing I
do.
You're going to start golf.
By putting it on the bench, do I ever get to golf again?
Yeah, you get to golf.
Okay. Well, I would say this. I would. This pains me to say. I would cut the Philadelphia Eagles, even though I do love the Philadelphia Eagles, but I would still have the Phillies and the Flyers and the
Buckeyes. He found a loophole.
And so that would be okay. And after they lost like 7 of the last 8 games last year, it wouldn't be too tough to let that memory go. But the Grateful Dead, I listen to every day. So
that's got to be your starter then.
I just can't imagine not listening to the Grateful Dead.
So if we had really gotten into this and tried to what would have been the 3 hardest Dead songs or even albums for us to have said, okay, Greg, you got to choose between these 3.
It's impossible, and we should have done the reason being,
I thought we had them.
The reason I like them so much is they, like me, they just evolve, and so songs that meant a lot to me at 18, I don't care for anymore. I listen to less, and songs I thought were terrible or throwaways are my favorites now, and so I just learned something new every time I hear the Grateful Dead, because they have nothing but live concerts, and every song is played differently, and so it's not like I'm listening to an album. I'm listening to live performances from different eras, going back to the 60s all the way through 1995 when Jerry Garcia died. So for me, I can always find something new, and my memory's bad, so I forget that I've heard all this stuff a million times too.
This may be an offensive question.
Sure.
But I know a lot of people who like Grateful Dead moved on to Fish. Is that?
I did not like Fish.
Is that a thing though, or am I just making that up?
Is it offensive? It's not offensive,
okay,
but
I didn't rate
it may be slightly ill-informed.
It might be dumb. I don't know.
I get annoyed when people are like, oh, so you like Jimmy Buffett and Fish? I'm like, no, they have nothing in common. In terms of the music, for me, it all begins and ends with the Grateful Dead. But I know I'm on the minority, and I'm not going to defend it.
Does it end with Jerry Garcia, or does it continue with kind of Dead and Company?
In terms of listening to, I listen to the Grateful Dead, but Liz and I have gone, my wife have gone to see Dead and Company probably 10 times together.
Who's the company? I know I'm stupid.
It's John Mayer is took over kind of for the lead guitar and other singer. And so I did not want to go, and a friend of mine in Indianapolis said, hey, I saw these guys are great. And John Mayer to me was always a pop guy.
Yeah.
And I said, this does not sound interesting. He said, I swear to you, you'll love it. And I went, and it was good. It was like, I would say it's the world's best cover band, right? It's not.
Do they play the same songs?
Okay.
They're not doing new stuff?
They play all the same songs that the Grateful Dead played, and they mix them up. And they actually brought a lot of songs that the Grateful Dead had stopped playing and brought those back. So that was interesting to hear that. And it's just, they're a lot older, so they're slower, and I'm a lot older, and I'm slower. And so it's just, it's fine, but, I'm never going to be 18 years old and on the road and going to see the Grateful Dead. It was just like following the circus. So it was fun.
Speaking of circuses, the Philadelphia Eagles and the whole Kelsey brothers circus.
Yeah.
What are you feeling? I know
I didn't pay a lot of attention.
I know Jason is retired.
I love Jason. Always have. Travis seems like a good guy, but he kind of wears me out. Yeah. My daughter is a huge Taylor Swift fan, so somebody that I've never watched football with sat down and watched a Sunday night football game with me the first time that Taylor was at a game.
Bringing worlds together.
Yeah, that was fun to watch a game with her. But being an Eagles fan and losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I also don't like the Chiefs. So that sours me on watching them.
Fair enough.
Well, and you really can't comment on the recent signing of Saquon Barkley because you cut the Eagles.
Yeah, I was excited until I got on this podcast.
Yeah, now you're like, well, they're gone.
Those were three that would be really tough to eliminate any of them.
We do deep research here.
Yeah,
we really do.
Dare I say, I think I have a start bench cut for you, Steve.
You dare not.
T, Toronto, Cats.
Cats the musical or Cats the animal?
Cats the animal.
You like cats?
I have 3 cats.
I didn't know that.
He's a cat guy.
I didn't know that.
Okay. I'm gonna start the Cats.
What?
Yeah.
They don't like you.
Cats, Toronto, T. Yeah, that's not hard.
Wow.
Are you a cat guy?
I'm not a cat guy.
I'm allergic to them, but I feel like they can do without you, Steve.
They're right. They're fine without me. But if I come and hang out with them, we have a mutual understanding. I'll leave them alone. They let me kind of mess with them when I want to mess with them. I feed them. It's a very kind of great, kind of good level relationship. I don't need to. I can continue to travel and do the other things, like go to Toronto if I wish to, and they're fine.
Yeah, I'm on team not cats.
Yeah.
Dogs all the way.
I'm not a cat person.
Yeah. Well, Darren, you're not fond of dogs either.
I'm allergic to everything that exists, so I can't own anything.
I know. Were it not for Darren, we would have like an office dog. But Darren, no. Darren
I ruined it for everybody.
Truly.
This podcast is supposed to make people like us, by the way, not like be enraged that I'm ruining everyone's bring a dog to work day plans.
So what I didn't do when we did our deep research, and I'd forgotten about it, I knew this, was you walked in today and you're like, I spent a lot of time in this office. I was like, what? So tell our listeners, all 10 of them.
Hi, Dad.
And you're going to mention somebody who occasionally does listen.
Okay.
Tell our listeners, including Rich King, my predecessor, about your history coming into this office.
So, I worked for the then Upper Arlington News. I don't know. I think it's this week now, if that even still exists. I don't even know if no. Okay, so
let's go on.
At the time, Upper Arlington News was part of.
Somebody gave the Dispatch a start bench cut, and they said cut on Suburban
Yeah,
News.
that's fair. So I covered the schools first, was Hilliard Schools and Upper Arlington Schools, and then I transferred over to Upper Arlington City Council. And so Rich King was the city manager, and I'm not even sure Brendan and Pat were even, I don't know how old they were. They must have been young because I was 25, so they must have been in school.
Yeah, Brendan King, our former city council president, would talk about how he sat like right over there and spent his youth in this office. So he was probably elementary school.
The same couch probably too.
No, couch is gone. It was same couch was here when I moved in, and I said, I don't need a couch. I'd rather have a couch table.
Yeah, Rich and the former editor of the Upper Arlington News since passed, Marty Rosenman, we used to get together every year with the three of us, and then Craig Moore, who I was telling you also worked for the city when Rich was here as the PIO, and we got lunch for years just to catch up and talk. So I always liked Rich.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy. So how do you go from writing about the incredibly riveting things that are early 2000s, late 90s Upper Arlington City Council happenings to running basically the group that's in charge of helping to set and then implement a vision for downtown Columbus?
Well, as you can imagine, there's a lot of steps in between there. So the good news about the Upper Arlington News is it was owned by the company that used to own the other paper, which was a weekly alternative newspaper, and Columbus Monthly
Great name,
magazine.
by the way.
It was great. It was a great paper, kept the dispatch honest. We had a lot of fun. And through that, I met then Council President Michael Coleman, who would later run for mayor, and met some of his people, covering them and being at City Hall. And so once I had my first child, being a reporter, as you can imagine, for the Upper Arlington News does not pay particularly well to raise a family. So it was get into public relations and try to make some money. It eventually landed at the city in public utilities, which water, sewer, as you know, you were there, a small power department. So I was their PIO, and I knew absolutely nothing about utilities. But as it turns out, and Steve was the development director for the city for a long time when we were working together, it turns out water and sewer is pretty important to developers. And so I learned a lot there, and more importantly, I met Mayor Coleman's people, who did not have a lot of people in the Department of Public Utilities. So having someone that kind of spoke their language and could translate and could, serve as an intermediary really got me to know then would have been Steve Campbell and Mike Reese and Ty Marsh and a lot of those guys, and just slowly got promoted. Eventually was deputy chief of staff for Mayor Coleman. And funny enough, the utilities director left, and I was the utilities liaison for the mayor's office, and they just asked me to be director. And so that's really kind of where my career took off.
And to give folks a sense of how big the Department of Utilities for the city of Columbus is, budget, miles of pipe.
Yeah, it was 1,300 employees.
1,300?
1,300. Yeah, there was, at the time, 3 water plants. They're building a 4th, 2 wastewater treatment plants, a compost facility, a division of power, stormwater management. It was big. And
so this is like a big deal title.
It was a big deal.
This isn't you're like a deputy, we got 1 million of them. Like you're like
no, I was the director. I would say
it wasn't. It's not as big a deal as being development director.
It's certainly not as big as a deal as being development director. I would say in terms, I've never been mayor, but mayor significance, I would say utilities, development, and public safety. Obviously, those 3 directors are probably the most significant, with public service maybe close behind.
Yeah, and you got that little safety department too.
Safety, obviously, the 70% of their budget. So. That's where a lot of the time went. But utilities wasn't part of the general fund budget because of, it's a commodity, and we were based on user fees, and obviously Upper Arlington and every other suburb almost gets their water and sewer from City of Columbus. So it was a pretty healthy budget, and Steve would tell you, I don't think the other directors cared for the utilities director because they never had
loved the utilities director. We found the utilities director to be a fine partner. Stingy with all that money, and a good.
I wasn't. That was the folks that followed me. I don't think I was
a good steward of the public trust. But yes.
Is this when he was your boss?
No, this is when we were colleagues, and then Greg went on to be.
Yes, and then Mayor Ginther, that was the council president. Mayor Coleman announced he wasn't running. Mayor Ginther threw his hat in the ring to be mayor and asked me if I would be his chief of staff.
Which is really a big position.
That was big. And that was, so did that for 4 years, and then went to the Columbus Partnership, which is a lot of the CEOs in town. They do some of their philanthropic work and community-oriented work through that organization, and also split my time with the group I'm with now, which is Downtown Columbus, Inc. And so when Guy Worley retired, I was asked by the board to replace him. And so I've been there 2.5 years.
Do you have any fun Steve is not good at his job stories from when you were his boss?
I don't know how long you have, but we could do a whole podcast. No, Steve was great. We worked really well together. And actually, when I was in the mayor's office, development to me at the time was the most important, I would say, department. And Steve was instrumental. Before he left, we had this large effort to keep the Columbus crew.
Yep.
And so Steve and I were working very closely, and he did a tremendous job along with Tony Collins, who was the former Park and Rec director. And with, I'm biased, but without the two of them and Mayor Ginther, I don't think the crew would still be here. There was a ton of work done to make that stadium happen, to communicate that to the public, and it was very stressful. We worked on a lot of stuff together.
That was the
North Market Tower started under Steve's watch.
Yeah, those were the two things that I actually kind of pushed off UA for a little bit, because this opportunity came open right as we were finishing that up, and I was like, guys, I love it. I love the idea, but I can't leave Columbus in the lurch with the stadium plus the Market Tower thing going at the same time. So
I just love how I asked for dirt and I got Steve's awesome and Save the Crew.
Steve was pretty awesome. Yeah, we worked well.
This is why you book the guests.
This is why I book the guests. This is what you got to learn in terms of booking the guests. Maybe it's just you don't have anybody.
I will say it's not awful. It's not even a complaint. The only thing, but if you're asking me to say something that's going to embarrass Steve,
yes.
The only thing about Steve, and I don't know if he's carried it over to Arlington, but you could be in a meeting and Steve, the filter wasn't always there, so Steve could tell somebody the truth, which is what I admired and liked about him. But sometimes it was a little too truthy, and so we'd have to back him down a little bit.
So
I have no idea what you are talking about, sir.
So,
but he was never wrong. It was just, we just had different ways to deliver a message.
That's a very nice way of saying something.
So our next, you'll appreciate this. I think genuinely our next podcast guest is Frank Cass.
Well, there you go. I've been in that meeting. Yeah. So
everybody around here thinks that Frank and I are thick as thieves, we've always been tight.
I can tell your listeners, all 10 of them, that is not always the case.
That was not always the case. There was a point at which Frank and I were not on the best of terms.
Yeah, but the great thing about that skill, and I have that same tendency to be very truthful, is is somebody who's looking out for the public and the public interest, to be able to stand up to a Frank Cass or to whoever the person might be that's very persuasive, and to be able to hold the line and stick to what the city agreed to. Not everybody can do that. So I always found it refreshing, but we would laugh about it as we'd get called into the principal's office.
I think the best/worst one we ever had that I ever did, after I did it, I was like, oh, that was probably too much. Was we were meeting on the Market Tower.
I knew where you were headed.
And,
that was the one I was thinking of when I was sharing it.
We had the folks from the North Market and the development team at the time. The team has since shifted. We're not getting along, and we were having a meeting to call them together to figure it out. And one of the principals from the developer side was late to the meeting, and then decided to come in and try and take over the meeting. And I looked at him and I said, if you want to leave, and I think I said,
you said, why don't you leave, come back in, try starting over, because this isn't going to work.
I mean, it's kind of brilliant because it's not like rude. It's just kind of like, yeah, this is where you are right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it worked.
It worked.
Because if you curse at somebody, that's not
It
good.
worked. I mean, everybody else in the room was kind of like,
And credit
shocked,
and
guess I can't do facial gestures on
credit,
on
and
radio.
the guy's first name is Mike. Credit to Mike.
Yeah.
He took it,
Yeah.
understood it, sat down, and had a very productive meeting.
So he didn't leave the room and come back, though.
No, he did not.
That would have been awesome. He's like, all right, I'm going to go do that. So
I had forgotten about that one.
I love Steve's stories, but I'm also intrigued by what your current position
Yeah.
is, because
Yeah.
I kind of know about them, but I think our listeners might have heard about what you do. But what do you do? Not you particularly, but your organization.
Yeah. So the organization really focuses on, the city of Columbus has its obviously downtown development, and they used to have a person dedicated to that, but I think in 2005 or so they decided to kind of spin out a nonprofit. So we could be a little more nimble, and the Lazarus building, many people might remember the old Lazarus department store. That's where we are, and the city agreed to remodel that, and it houses a lot of office workers. So we have the Ohio EPA, Ohio Medicaid, Department of Insurance. We have the partnership. We have the chamber, and so what we've done, the city paid to remodel it, and we get the rent. So that's our stream of dollars to keep this organization going. And then also the old city center, which is over where Columbus Commons is now, where they have Picnic with the Pops, lots of free events. There's a underground garage there, and a garage south of there, and it's a lot of parking spaces. So we get that revenue as well.
And then what do you do with the money that you
And so what we did is Columbus Commons, for instance,
Okay.
we did the Scioto Mile, the riverfront, the Scioto Mile Fountain, which we are actually redoing and opening Memorial Day. Got a $15 million reinvestment.
That's going to be ready to open that soon?
Yeah, and
That's
the folks. Great. Yeah, we hired the folks that actually did the Bellagio. So,
Okay.
Is it going to do that kind of stuff?
it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to have fog and lights, and we're going to
What?
be able to do probably 10 months out of the year where it won't maybe be a water feature, but there will be lights and art and
Are
just
you going to have
much
Wayne
more
Newton
interactive.
come and open it?
Say that?
Are you going to have Wayne Newton come?
Yeah,
from
he
Vegas?
could. Yeah, so that's cool. We just opened our first housing project. Mayor Ginther had asked us to do some workforce housing, affordable housing. So we built 100 units on Topiary Park, which is kind of on the east side of downtown over by Grant. They're beautiful. It's great. It's been going well. We are doing the YMCA. We purchased that on behalf of the city, and we're going to put affordable units in there, keep the building because it's so historic.
So you're kind of doing all the sort of development type things, but as you said, it's more of a nonprofit as opposed to the city having to do RFPs.
Yeah, well, we do RFPs because if we use city dollars, it still triggers that process. And then the one that we're most excited about is the Peninsula, which is behind COSI, where the new Junto's open, Daimler's got an office building, a bunch of residential units are opening. We're hoping to announce phase 2. We have announced it, but specifics of it really soon. We're going to have a 35,000 square foot grocery, which will be really big for downtown. There's not
Nice.
a
Where is that going to go? Or
right on the peninsula,
really?
right on Broad and Bell, which is the entry to the road off of Broad that goes to COSI. Putting a Pins, similar
North side of Broad or south side of Broad?
south.
Okay.
Pins Mechanical?
Oh, yeah.
Pins
yeah,
Mechanical, similar to the one that's in Easton and in Bridge Park. And really,
cool.
I think Bridge Park, kind of got out in front of it in terms of what, they did it obviously before COVID, but since COVID, the office market, I'm sure you guys deal with this as well, it's just kind of cratered, and people that are looking for office are looking more for that model where you can live, work, play,
Amenities,
kind of
things
in the
like
same
that,
place and not be out on 270 in an office park. So we're really hopeful about that. And the one thing about downtown, Bridge Park's great. Kingsdale looks great. Having grown up in Upper Arlington, that Macy's building was just always so ugly. So kudos to everybody for doing that. And I'm really excited about it.
I've got some extra blue
Yeah.
bricks if you want me to give you
for
one
nostalgia,
as
it's kind of cool.
as
But
a party gift, yeah.
once the Market District went there and everything else went there, it needed to go. So I'm really happy to see that. But the Peninsula, we think is going to be fundamental to bringing people downtown. We have a goal. We did a strategic plan a year and a half ago to have 40,000 people downtown by 2040. There's currently probably 13,700. There'll be 17,000 by the end of this year. But in 1950, I think we had 33,000. In 2000, we had 3,000.
Yeah.
So just trying to rebuild that. I think we just have a lot of younger people in the community. We have a lot of growth. hopefully that growth continues with Intel and all this other stuff. So,
well, and congratulations on the peninsula, because that was the thing that I didn't manage to get out of the ground before I left, and the fact that you and I know Amy Taylor on your team has worked a lot on that.
Yeah.
It's every time I go down there, I'm shocked and amazed at how much you guys have been able to get down.
Yeah,
there.
and
So
that's what we find is if we can get people downtown, people get really excited and they don't realize how much it's changed. Same with the Short North, same with a lot of stuff. It just COVID, just really made it. People didn't want to go downtown. People don't really want to leave their house. And if you're not working downtown and you're not in the office, we have to give people a reason to come back downtown. So,
well, and one of the things I've noticed about downtown is yes, there's Capitol Square.
Mm-hmm.
Capitol Square is its own interesting kind of dynamic because the state capitol, but there's so much just outside of that yes, if you look at just Capitol Square, it's been tough. It's been tough since COVID for that area, but everything else around there is doing fantastic.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw, but a couple weeks ago, the mayor and Jeff Edwards, who's on our board and a local developer, announced a 2-mile, we're calling it the Capitol Line, which is going to go, Jeff has a lot of property on Gay Street, Gay and High, where a lot of those new restaurants are going, and very excited. If you've been to Indianapolis or you've been to New York or you've been to Atlanta, they have the High Line, they have the Belt Line, it's called I believe the Cultural Trail in Indianapolis, where it's an intentional, pedestrian friendly. We're going to have bikes and people that can walk, and it's going to connect all of our assets that we've built. So you'll go to the peninsula, you'll come up Gay Street. We're going to try to take Broad Street, which when you come from downtown over to Coastside, Steve, it's very unfriendly to pedestrians and to bikes. And so we're going to try to choke that down, maybe green it up, and just make it a more walkable downtown. And that's what we heard from our strategic plan is, Columbus was built to get cars in and out of downtown as fast as possible. And that's just not the model that people want anymore. So Link Us, which I'm sure you've been approached about and all the communities in Central Ohio have been approached about, would be a huge part of that, to be able to have bus rapid transit in and out. And they're talking about doing some development with us down there as part of that. But that's going to be critical to the area's success. But the Capitol Mile should be great, and I think the state is going to help out with it, and we just got tremendous feedback from it. So really excited.
That's great, and I'm glad you brought up Link Us, because that is something that we are going to be. We are on the record as saying we think that's kind of an existential question for inner ring suburbs like Upper Arlington. With the growth that we're going to see on West Campus, with the growth that we're going to see in the region as a whole, if we don't really get in front of our transportation costs, we're going to either choke on the growth or completely lose our quality of life. And so it's not just connecting downtown for the sake of connecting downtown, but when you look at the opportunity to have a rapid transit corridor running up Olentangy River Road and cutting across Bethel, headed up to Bridge Park, and you think about what that could mean for our community, we think it's a fantastic thing. And so we're going to spend a lot of time over the next year between now and November trying to help educate our residents so that they understand the choice they're making when they go to the ballot in November.
Right. That's great to hear. And that goes to a bigger point I try to make all the time is, living in Upper Arlington or New Albany or Dublin or any suburbs, great. But without a healthy downtown and without a healthy community, the suburbs are going to suffer as well. I don't know any great American city that is a suburb. It's, there's a city and there's great suburbs around that city, but you need employment, you need housing, you need all these things that we're talking about as a regional community. And I think it's important for people to understand that, yes, it might not affect where you live, some of these issues, but it's certainly going to affect the quality of life around you and the future of where you live. Yeah. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And plus, I just like going downtown. I think downtown, Bridge Park's great, and a lot of places have great development, but there's just something, when you're in the peninsula, you're in a downtown urban first neighborhood in Columbus. It feels different, and you got the river. It's just really cool.
I do have one concern. I was deeply saddened the other day, and I poured a little bit of my tea out,
which you've cut,
which I did cut. Well,
tea's
all
gone.
the more reason to pour it out, for the loss of Hotoy.
Hotoy's gone?
Anybody who worked in the Rife Tower or worked downtown for
See,
as long as I did. I worked in the
Yeah.
I
Rife
was at
Tower
Rhodes.
for 13
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. You might be the first person that I've heard express those sentiments.
It's
Because I hadn't worked there for 10 years and I'd forgotten about all the stomach problems I'd had from eating there.
Yeah,
But yes.
I don't think I ever ate there. to
You
be honest
never
with you.
ate at Hotoy?
I don't believe I did.
Oh my god! There were two of the old timers when I first started working back in '97 in the Rife Tower, like twice a week over to Hotoy. Just
I worked in Rhodes for. By the way, I want to say you have done some great work downtown because I was at Rhodes when they took down the city center, and it
Yeah.
made me very sad because I used to
Yeah.
always shop in there my lunch.
Yeah.
So I was like, "This is the dumbest idea ever. This mall's
Yeah.
cool," and now it actually looks so much nicer.
It's
like
so much better.
you can
Yeah.
go down there. It's open. They have events there. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
It's
but
great. Yeah.
I was a disbeliever, but now I'm a believer. But I thought Hotoy would survive everything.
I think I thought I think there were things in there that would survive a nuclear war. Like,
Yeah.
if you know what I'm talking about.
I always went to Lee's over there at the.
Oh,
Lee's gone too?
World's fastest Chinese.
Yeah, I always went there.
Lee's was very good.
That was good.
Lee's. You would have your check before you even
Yeah,
sat down.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Is it gone too, Steve?
I don't know.
'Cause that made it
I
out-
think it might still be.
It wasn't in the part that got
of it
destroyed.
didn't get torn.
Right.
Correct. So I assume it's still there.
Road trip.
That would be very sad if both Lee's and Hotoy were gone.
Yeah, Lee's was like I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about Hotoy, but Lee's was actually pretty good.
Lee's
It was
was
very
pretty
good.
Like, it
No,
was
you
not-
can, Hotoy's gone. You can speak ill of it.
Yeah, Lee's was actually quality
can't
food. So if Lee's
speak
is still
to it.
there, check it out. I liked it.
Yeah, the sign at Hotoy was pretty cool. All right, so that's so you got through being you're at CDDC now, or sorry,
No.
Downtown
Columbus
Columbus Inc.
Inc.
Yeah.
Did you have like
Downtown Columbus.
professional people help you rebrand
We did,
that? Or
yeah.
were you just like, hey, let's change it to
It
this?
was a combination of our internal staff, and we did hire somebody, and the website's all been redesigned. Downtown Columbus.
So who came up with Downtown Columbus Inc? Was that you?
You know, it's not super original. I think there's a few around the country. We had probably 5 to 10 names to choose from. That was certainly the one I thought. It's simple.
Kinda makes sense.
It sounds professional.
Was there like a crazy one that was like, let's call it sassafras? And you're
No,
like,
there
no,
wa- there
that's not
wasn't-
going to work.
There was just no.
There wasn't anything that sounded like it could be a medication or something.
Yeah, some of them were just too long or too wordy. I don't know. It just
Because I like when they rebrand and they're good, but it's also fun to see
Yeah.
like what else did they come up with that was so bad.
yeah, it wasn't. None of it was horrible. It just didn't jump off the page, you know.
Nobody
So.
called it Co-Town or anything.
But
like that.
no, a lot of C-bus, a lot of, some of it just seemed a little, it's cool, but is that the image you want, as you're trying to develop? It's not, it's a different, maybe mission than Experience Columbus or somebody that is trying to attract people and be cool and hip. We have to have some legitimacy for what we do.
Yeah, calling yourself
and be
C-bus might have
serious.
been a little bit too
Yeah,
chills,
so
you
there
know?
was some of that, but I'm also old, so I don't know.
You are getting old.
I am.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's better than the alternative,
Yeah.
as they say. And it's you're doing it relatively for you gracefully. I appreciate that.
Wow, Steve started from like he booked a guest. I was gonna say nice things about him, then he kind of backdoor insults him.
Greg would be
I
very
would be
disappointed if I
disappointed,
didn't
yeah.
say something like that.
Yeah.
Didn't
but
you work
actually,
with him a long time ago?
we worked.
Yeah.
How long were you at the city?
We worked 6 years, and
Yeah.
it was a pretty intense 6 years. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I was utilities director when you started. right?
you were at utilities. You were at utilities. Kelsey was at public service.
Yeah.
Before he came here, and Mitch Brown was.
Yeah.
DP.
Steve and I were one of the, I'd say, in the minority of
and we
high
were.
positions that survived the transition.
Yes, we were, and we were also of a similar. We're roughly. I think we're roughly the same.
I'm
age.
going to be 56 in
Yeah, I'm
this
50.
month.
Yeah. I'm
So when
53.
you called him old, you called yourself old too.
there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah. Steve actually
Exactly.
used to live right behind me at my
I
old
almost
house,
hit you-
and I used to cut Steve's grass when he'd go on vacation.
I'd forgotten about that.
You should be
just
so
remember-
much nicer
he
now.
he never cut my grass though.
I offered. You never took me up on it. I almost killed you and your kid one morning going to church.
yes,
Because you guys came around the corner really fast. And anyway.
Yeah.
So.
You almost killed him. You never cut his grass.
No.
Correct.
It's taken years to get him on the podcast.
Got me yelled at for a few meetings that he was in, stuff like that.
The
I
dark
didn't-
side
I didn't
of
know
Steve.
I didn't know you took those bullets from me. That's very nice of you. I'm sure you were just like, it's just Shoney. He's fine.
Yeah.
It'll get done.
Hey, we got a lot done together.
Yeah. But you grew up here, right?
I moved here in ninth grade.
Okay.
No, it doesn't
So,
count.
yeah,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
I do not count myself as a native.
As a native. Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
accept you. That's longer than I've lived here.
When I moved here, I was in high school. I was at least a quarter into high school. I was in Grandview. I moved to Buckeye Valley, which is out in Delaware County.
Yeah.
And so it was two high schools. And then I came back here, and I was the last year that Jones was ninth grade, so I had to actually come back to junior high.
Oh, wow.
And so I was the first, the last class, and then the ninth and 10th graders, we went to the high school together. So that was an interesting experience.
So did you have to like go back to junior high when
Yeah.
you were already in high school?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's the same number.
It was
but
7,
that-
8, 9 was
that had to
was
be pretty
junior high
brutal, though,
here.
right?
Yeah, it was different. It was
like,
a different
I
kinda-
was in high school.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. It was odd.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Upper Arlington, it's a great community. It's not the best community to move into when you're in high school.
Yeah. Any community is tough. And
Yeah,
I can
and that's
imagine it
probably
would
true
be.
anywhere, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can be an intimidating place for folks
Sure.
when they come in. But you lived here. You've raised
Two of
one
my
set of
own.
kids.
Yeah.
One set of kids. You enjoyed raising teenagers
Yeah.
so much you
Yeah.
decided to remarry
Yeah, I
and do
got
it again.
remarried and got 3 more. So the last one's a senior this year. So after May, we will be empty nesters.
Yeah, and his stepdaughters, 2 of them are the same age as my sons. Fortunately, I don't think, unless the boys just never told me, I don't think our kids have ever dated, which is
I don't
probably a good
believe
thing.
so.
How
but
awesome would
they
that
say good
homecoming
things
picture
about
be?
it, but I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
But they don't tell me a lot, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
No, I get. I have to judge by grunt.
Yeah.
So you've lived here a long time, and as I gave you a little bit of a heads up, at the end of every interview, we finish up with 2 questions.
Hmm.
What do you love about UA? What would you change?
So I love the location. I love being, I always tell people I lived in Columbus before I moved up Arlington, up around Sawmill and 161 West Case area. And I moved to the suburbs, and I was 20 minutes closer to downtown, right? So I love the location of Upper Arlington. I've met, I think in the last 10, 20 years, I think Upper Arlington has shifted a little bit. I think it's a little more welcoming. I think it's a little, and not that it wasn't unwelcoming, but it was, it just felt like you kind of had to grow up here to claim it. And
Yeah.
I think there's more sense of community for everybody now, hopefully. I feel that. I hope other people feel that. I think it's a wonderful place. My kids went K through 12 here and got a great education, went to a great college, very prepared. Great friends to this day that were from here. I have a lot of friends that I've met since I've lived here, and reconnected with someone I went to high school with, But like anywhere, I think you can always improve on certain things, but in terms of quality of life, the neighborhood we live in, I mean, I was out last night, out back, smoking a cigar and just thinking, I haven't been outside in a while. It's just so beautiful to sit and so peaceful and comfortable. And I really like that. And it's mature, the trees, it's just a lot of intentional thought goes into building this community. And that I love. I just, I wish it was more of a sense that, it wasn't, we were keeping it for ourselves, but we were just
And we get
enjoying it.
We get that comment a lot, and I actually, frankly, like the fact that that's something people always bring up, because it is when you look at a community that, by every metric, has been very successful. Looking at it and saying, we got to find ways to share the success. We got to find ways to let anybody who wants to come here and be part of this great community, make it easier for them to find a pathway. And once they get here, find ways for them to really go from living here to feeling like they belong here, and that the community belongs to them.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's something that we've always got to strive for. And we talk about it a lot, both with council and with our community organizations and stuff. And I think we're making strides, but it is something that I appreciate you saying it, because it's something we work on a lot.
Yeah, and it's, Upper Arlington's a big community. I know we used to be around 35, 40,000. I assume
About the
it's
same.
still in there. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different parts of Upper Arlington.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, people just get so close to it. It's just, you know, we live here, we live here, we live here, and it's just silly. It's like you live in Upper Arlington. You know?
Well, and people, the other thing I find people forget is that like 20% of the housing units here are multifamily units.
Yeah. That's right.
Is it that high?
Yeah.
I feel stupid asking since I work here, but I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is that high, and that's before we do things like opening the gateway and opening the units
Yeah.
that are coming online at Kingsdale.
I do think that's helped a lot. I think the redevelopment of Kingsdale, you and I've talked about that. I think,
Yeah.
you know, Lane Avenue, when, you know, I lived on Brandon, you lived on Chester, not too far from there. You know, I remember when they were building the Wine Bistro and trying to get that zoned, and you know, people are losing their minds, and they're trying to get me to go to council to say there's going to be stranger danger and people peeing in my yard at 2 a.m. I'm like, it's the friggin' Wine Bistro. I mean, they're not going to put a strip club on Lane Avenue. You know, it's just not going to happen
Yet.
And I
No,
think
just kidding.
I think similar to Bridge Park, you know, a lot of people on council lost their jobs supporting Bridge
Yeah.
Park, and now everybody's a fan, right? So I think Lane Avenue is great. I think it's brought in more people. I think Kingsdale's great. I'm excited for what's going down on 33 at the Golden Bear Shopping Center. So I like that you're focused on economic development. I think that's always been a blind spot for the city, is everybody wants this incredibly high level of service, but they don't understand that there has to be a way to pay for that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that way is through jobs and through people coming to town and doing those things and supporting it. So I always try to support the local restaurants. You know, I love the new Littleton's Market.
Yeah.
You know, to go there, I think that's just fantastic. I was really sad when Huffman sold and, you know, kind of went down a little and then disappeared. But, you know, kudos to they've done a tremendous job. It's just a really nice community.
I know you know the Scantlins are involved in that.
Yeah.
We had Pete has been a guest on here.
Yeah.
And I gave him a hard time about. You might imagine they asked for a bigger sign than we allowed them to have.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great, and everything on. I do think back to what Lane Avenue was before. You had a defunct church,
Yeah.
a dojo,
Yeah.
an insurance office that's still the building's still there, and you know, some houses that were fine houses for those families that raised their kids there, but
Yeah.
we're past their prime. And you
Yeah,
look at what it is today.
And that's where the planned development was planned. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where the economic corridor is, and we should use it. So I support everything it can. I support everything you're doing. I just think it's great, and I know you get a lot of grief, but not a lot. But some people are gonna, you know, some people are reluctant to change, but you know, that's why you're there, to make the hard decisions.
yeah, something like that, or I just make Darren make the hard decisions and blame it on the lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lawyer said I can't do that. And by the way, there will be no strip clubs on Lane Avenue. That's
Yeah, I never thought
Not
figured
zoned
there would be,
appropriately
but
It's
for
not.
that,
It is not. It is not zoned. We do have our zoning set up so that adult entertainment districts are not a part of our zoning. Well, listen. Thanks for taking the time
Thank
to come
you.
on. Thanks for everything you're doing downtown.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and I love the work that you're doing. I love the strategic direction change that you've brought, where making it not just about. You know, previously I think there was a perception that CDDC was just about doing kind of high-end stuff, and what you're doing now is you're doing stuff that is high quality and for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about the mixed use or
Yeah.
mixed income projects that you're doing, and you're showing that can work. So thank you for doing all
Yeah, thank you. Come downtown.
that. All right.
Love to have you.
All right. It's good to see you, man.
Thanks for being
Good to
on.
see you. Thank you.
I'm just a simple farmer.